Listen to me very closely because your brain is about to reject what I am telling you. Look at the sharp angles. Look at the flat glass. Listen to the heavy mechanical clunk of the door latch. That sound is not luxury. That is the sound of a bank vault closing. That is the sound of a weapon. You are looking at the Mercedes G-Wagen, a vehicle that defies every single rule of modern automotive design, yet it sits in the driveways of the richest human beings on Earth. Why? This is a psychological glitch in the matrix of wealth. Today, we are going to deconstruct the greatest lie in the automotive industry. You think you are buying a status symbol, but you are actually buying a piece of military hardware that was never, ever meant to be driven by civilians. The story of the G-Class and its massive sibling, the GLS, is not a story about comfort. It is a story about a refusal to compromise, a story about secret orders, and a story about how a machine built for the muddy trenches became the crown jewel of Hollywood. But to understand why a rapper or a billionaire wants a car that drives like a tractor and has the aerodynamics of a brick wall, we have to go back to a time before the glamour. We have to go back to 1972, to a secret meeting that changed the world. Stop looking at the leather seats. The leather is a mask. Rip it away, and you find cold, hard Austrian steel. The G-Wagen was born from a request by one man. Not a CEO, not a marketing genius, but a monarch. The Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. At the time, he was a major shareholder in Mercedes-Benz, and he had a problem. He didn't need a limousine. He needed a wolf. He needed a vehicle that could patrol the most hostile borders on the planet. A vehicle that could climb 80-degree slopes, survive sandstorms in the Sahara, and freeze in the Arctic Circle without the engine failing. He ordered 20,000 units before the car even existed. This was the spark. Mercedes partnered with Steyr-Daimler-Puch in Graz, Austria. This is crucial for you to understand. The engineers were not told to build a car. They were told to build a tool. Imagine a hammer. You don't design a hammer to be pretty. You design it to hit hard. That is why the G-Wagen looks the way it does. The flat glass? That's not a style choice. It's because flat glass is cheaper to replace in the middle of a war zone and doesn't reflect the sun, keeping the vehicle hidden. The exposed door hinges. They aren't retro chic. They are on the outside so that if the door is crushed or jammed, you can knock the pins out and escape. Every single detail you see on a $200,000 G63 AMG today is a fossil of military necessity. The engineers in Graz were obsessed. They built a test track on the Schöckl mountain. It is a brutal, rock-filled nightmare. They decided that this vehicle would not just drive. It would conquer. They created a slogan, "Stronger than time." But here is the hook, here is the twist that makes this story insane. By the time the G-Wagen was finally ready for production in 1979, the world had flipped upside down. The Shah of Iran, the man who ordered the car, had been overthrown. The order for 20,000 units was cancelled. Mercedes was left with a military monster and no one to buy it. Panic set in. They had built the ultimate survival machine, a vehicle capable of crossing any terrain on Earth, but they had no customer. They looked at this boxy, utilitarian beast and thought, who on earth would want this? It had no air conditioning. It had no carpets. It was loud. It vibrated. It was raw capability wrapped in metal. They tried to sell it to the German army, the Bundeswehr, but they said no. They chose the Volkswagen Iltis instead because it was cheaper. Can you imagine the humiliation? The engineers at Mercedes had created a masterpiece of durability. A car that could literally outlive its owner, and nobody wanted it. They were standing on the edge of failure, but they didn't know that they had accidentally created something else. They had created a blank canvas for the human ego. They didn't realize that in 40 years, this rejected military truck would become the ultimate signal of dominance. We are just getting started. The transformation from a rejected soldier to the king of the road is filled with secret deals, surprising twists, and a specific moment where Mercedes almost killed the G-Class forever. You need to understand that the luxury you see today was an accident. The chrome is a lie. The comfort is a disguise. Underneath, it is still waiting for the order to attack the terrain. And the GLS? The GLS was the answer to a question nobody asked until the Americans got involved. But before the billionaires came, there was the Pope. Yes, the Vatican saw something in this box that the generals missed. But that is where the psychology of safety begins to mutate into the psychology of status. Stay with me, because in the next part, we are going to uncover how a specific religious icon and a change in global politics turned a tractor into a treasure, and why Mercedes fought tooth and nail to stop civilians from buying it. You are looking at a miracle, but not the kind you find in the Bible. After the Shah fell and the German army said no, the G-Wagen was effectively dead walking. It was an orphan with a steel heart, destined to rust in history books as a failed military experiment. But then, something bizarre happened. Something that no marketing algorithm could ever predict. The Vatican called. It was 1980. Pope John Paul II was scheduled to visit Germany, and he needed a vehicle. Not a limousine, because in a limousine, the crowds cannot see you. He needed a throne on wheels. He needed height. And what was the only vehicle Mercedes had that was tall enough, stable enough, and slow enough to carry the leader of the Catholic Church through crushing crowds? The failed military truck. They took a G-Wagen, chopped off the roof, and installed a bizarre, bulletproof plexiglass cupola. They painted it mother-of-pearl white and put golden hubcaps on it. When the world saw the Pope waving from inside this rugged, boxy machine, the psychology of the public snapped. Overnight, the image of the G-Class shifted from war machine to holy vessel. This is the halo effect in its purest form. If the holiest man on earth trusts this car with his life, it must be the ultimate safe haven. But Mercedes engineers were confused. They were still trying to sell this thing to farmers and forest rangers. They didn't understand that they had just stumbled upon the secret formula for modern luxury. Exclusivity born from utility. In 1981, they made a decision that felt wrong to every purist in the company. They decided to civilize the beast. They didn't change the shape. They didn't smooth out the aerodynamics. They simply added air conditioning and an automatic transmission. It was like putting a tuxedo on a grizzly bear. It didn't make sense, and that is exactly why it worked. But here is the real hook, the psychological trigger that made this car a legend in America. Listen closely, because this is a lesson in reverse psychology. Mercedes refused to sell the G-Wagen in the United States. They looked at the American market, obsessed with soft, comfortable Cadillacs and Lincolns, and said, "Americans will hate this. It rides like a truck. It is too loud. It is too expensive." So they banned it. They literally refused to export it to the richest country in the world. And what happens when you tell a millionaire they cannot have something? They want it more than oxygen. The gray market was born. A small company in Santa Fe called Europa International exploited a loophole in the law. They started importing G-Wagons one by one, modifying them to meet U.S. safety standards. Because of the import costs and the modifications, the price doubled. Suddenly, the G-Wagen wasn't just a car. It was a six-figure challenge. To drive a G-Wagen in Hollywood in the 1980s meant you were smarter than the system. It meant you had connections. Arnold Schwarzenegger saw one and demanded it immediately. It became the ultimate flex. I have the car that Mercedes says I shouldn't have. The imperfections of the car, the heavy steering, the wind noise, the stiff suspension became features. They proved you were driving something real in a world of plastic fakes. But there was a massive problem lurking under the hood. A problem so embarrassing that Mercedes tried to hide it. The engine was weak, pathetically weak. The original G-Wagen had less than 100 horsepower. It was slower than a family van. You had the look of a tank, the price of a Ferrari, and the speed of a bicycle. It was a contradiction that couldn't last. The wealthy owners started complaining. They didn't just want to look powerful. They wanted to feel powerful. They wanted the engine to match the ego. And this demand for power sparked a civil war inside Mercedes-Benz. The purists wanted to keep it reliable and slow. The new guard wanted to inject it with madness. This internal battle sets the stage for the most insane engineering decision in automotive history. A decision involving a small, rogue tuning shop called AMG. In the next part, we are going to watch the G-Wagen lose its mind. We will see how a crazy idea to stuff a V8 engine into a tractor created the monster we know today, and how the soccer mom inadvertently saved the brand with the birth of the ML and the GLS. The war for the soul of the SUV is about to begin. You are witnessing the Frankenstein moment of automotive history, the moment the monster woke up. The G-Wagen had the body of a soldier, but the heart of a weakling. It was embarrassing, but in a small garage in a Falterback, two rogue engineers named Aufrecht and Melcher, the founders of AMG, were watching. AMG was not the corporate division you know today. They were the outlaws. They were the guys who took boring Mercedes sedans and turned them into race cars that scared the hell out of professional drivers. They looked at the G-Wagen and saw what everyone else missed. They saw a challenge to the laws of physics. In 1993, they did the unthinkable. They took a massive 5.0-liter V8 engine and shoved it into the cramped engine bay of the G-Class. This was not engineering. This was surgery with a chainsaw. The result was the 500GE. It was the first time the military truck could accelerate like a sports car. The vibration changed. The sound changed. It went from a diesel rattle to a deep, guttural roar that shook the pavement. This was the turning point where utility died and excess was born. Suddenly, you didn't buy a G-Wagen to drive through mud. You bought it to terrify the person in the lane next to you. But while the G-Wagen was finding its muscle, Mercedes corporate headquarters in Stuttgart was plotting its murder. Again, you see, the G-Wagen was a nightmare to build. It was hand-welded in Austria. Took too long. It was too expensive. The profit margins were thin. Mercedes wanted the American money, but they didn't want the Austrian headache. They looked at the exploding popularity of the Jeep Grand Cherokee and the Ford Explorer in the 1990s and realized they were losing billions. They needed a mass-market SUV. They needed something soft, something cheap to build, something for the soccer moms, not the generals. So they committed the ultimate betrayal. They announced the M-Class, and to build it, they didn't look to Germany. They looked to Alabama. They built a massive factory in the deep south of the USA to create the G-Wagen killer. The M-Class was everything the G-Wagen was not. It was curvy. It was aerodynamic. It had cup holders. It was designed by focus groups, not by soldiers. To sell it, they pulled one of the greatest marketing stunts in history. They gave the car to Steven Spielberg. When you watched The Lost World, Jurassic Park, and you saw those Mercedes SUVs running from T-Rexes, you weren't looking at a G-Wagen. You were looking at the M-Class. It was a message to the world. The future is here, and the old boxy truck is extinct. The plan was simple. Launch the M-Class, let it take over the market, and quietly discontinue the G-Wagen. It was a logical business decision. It was smart. It was efficient. And it failed miserably. Why? Because logic does not apply to the super-rich. When the M-Class arrived, the wealthy elite looked at it and sneered. It was too plastic. It was too normal. It looked like a minivan on steroids. They didn't want practical. They wanted the box. The sales of the G-Wagen didn't drop. They spiked. The threat of cancellation made the G-Wagen even more desirable because it became a forbidden fruit again. The Mercedes executives were baffled. They had built the perfect SUV in Alabama, but the celebrities and the oil sheiks still wanted the uncomfortable, loud Austrian tractor. But the Americans had one valid complaint. The M-Class was too small, and the G-Wagen was too narrow. The Americans wanted size. They wanted a living room on wheels. They wanted 7 seats. This demand birthed a new monster. A vehicle so large it would make the G-Wagen look like a toy. In 2006, Mercedes prepared to launch the GL Class, the father of the modern GLS. This was their second attempt to kill the G-Wagen. They designed the GL to be the G-Class replacement. They literally planned to stop G-Wagen production the day the GL launched. They thought, surely, now that we have a 7-seater giant, nobody will want the old military box. They were about to make a billion-dollar mistake. In the next part, we will expose how the GLS, the S-Class of SUVs, was born from this war of siblings, and how a specific group of American rappers saved the G-Wagen from execution, turning it into the most profitable square meter of metal in the world. The year is 2006, and you are standing at a funeral. Or at least, that is what Mercedes-Benz planned. They had the coffin ready. They had the replacement ready. They launched a vehicle called the G-Class, known internally as the X164. This massive, 7-seater Titan was designed with one specific purpose: to bury the G-Wagen. The executives in Stuttgart were tired of the complaints. They were tired of the G-Wagen's stiff axles, the cramped interior, and the wind noise that sounded like a hurricane at high speeds. The G-Class was the solution. It was huge. It was smooth. It floated on air suspension. It was the S-Class of SUVs. They were so confident that the G-Wagen was dead that they actually released a model called the Grand Edition. In car language, Grand Edition means goodbye. It means this is the last one. Buy it before it's gone. They prepared to shut down the assembly line in Graz. But then the glitch happened again. The logic of the German engineers crashed headfirst into the ego of American pop culture. While Mercedes was trying to sell the sensible, comfortable GL to families, the G-Wagen had quietly infiltrated the most powerful marketing machine on the planet, MTV. You have to understand the psychology of the early 2000s. This was the era of MTV cribs. This was the era of excess. Rappers, athletes, and movie stars didn't want a car that made sense. They didn't want a car that was polite. The GL-Class was polite. It looked like a car for a responsible parent who picks up the kids from soccer practice. But the G-Wagen? The G-Wagen looked like it could smash through the school. It became the visual shorthand for "Don't touch me." When a rapper put 24-inch rims on a G-Wagen, it wasn't just a modification. It was a statement of dominance. It defied the wind. It defied the road. And most importantly, it defied depreciation. The wealthy buyers looked at the new, curvy GL-Class and said, no. They didn't want the soft curves. They wanted the hard edges. They realized that the G-Wagen's flaws, the heavy doors, the high step in height, were actually its greatest assets. They made the driver feel like they were climbing into a fortress. Mercedes watched in horror, and then in delight, as sales of the dying G-Wagen started to climb. They witnessed the Veblen effect in real time. This is an economic anomaly where increasing the price of a product actually makes people want it more. The G-Wagen became a status symbol precisely because it was expensive and irrational. If you bought a GL, you were smart with your money. If you bought a G-Wagen, you had so much money that you didn't have to be smart. This realization split the Mercedes timeline in two. They decided to keep both monsters alive. The GL, which would later become the GLS, took the role of the luxury liner, the tech-heavy, comfortable flagship for the family. But the G-Wagen? They took the leash off. They realized they could charge absolutely anything for it. They stopped trying to make it a car for the people and started turning it into a toy for the gods. This sets the stage for the modern era, where Mercedes decided to do the impossible. Combine the rugged, military skeleton of 1979 with the digital, diamond-quilted luxury of a Maybach. But to do that, they had to solve a sound engineering problem that is so specific, so obsessive, that it became the most expensive click in the world. In the next part, we will open the door, literally, and listen to the sound of money, and see how the G-Wagen survived the strictest safety regulations that should have killed it 10 times over. I want you to close your eyes and imagine the sound of a prison cell closing. Now imagine the sound of a bolt-action rifle loading around. Combine them. That distinct, heavy, metallic clack is the sound of a Mercedes G-Wagen door closing. And what I am about to tell you is the single most insane fact in the history of car manufacturing. That sound does not exist by accident anymore. That sound is engineered. When Mercedes decided to completely reinvent the G-Wagen in 2018, they faced a crisis. The European Union had passed strict pedestrian safety laws. The old G-Wagen was a brick wall. If it hit you, it didn't end well. The laws required cars to be softer, rounder, and safer. But the customers, the billionaires, the sheiks, the celebrities gave Mercedes a warning. They said, if you change the door handle, we will not buy it. If you lose the sound, the car is dead. Do you understand the pressure? Mercedes had to build a brand new, high-tech vehicle that met 2018 safety standards, but felt exactly like a 1979 tractor. They formed a dedicated sound team whose only job was the door latch. They spent millions of dollars engineering a latch that would produce that specific acoustic frequency of safety. They had to design a mechanism that breaks away in a crash to save lives, but feels like solid granite when you touch it. They succeeded. When you close the door of a 2024 G63, you are hearing a lie. You are hearing a perfectly tuned acoustic trick designed to trigger a dopamine release in your brain that says, "I am safe. I am powerful." This is the psychology of haptics. But the deception went deeper. Look at the 2018 redesign. It looks identical to the old one, right? Wrong. Only 3 parts were carried over: the door handle, the spare tire cover, and the headlight washer nozzles. Every single other panel was changed. They widened the car by 10 centimeters so you wouldn't be rubbing shoulders with your passenger anymore. They replaced the ancient steering system with modern electric rack and pinion, so you didn't have to wrestle the steering wheel like a bus driver. But they kept the exposed hinges on the outside. Why? Aerodynamically, exposed hinges are a disaster. They create wind noise and drag. But visually, they are jewelry. They are the cufflinks on the suit. Mercedes realized that the G-Wagen is not a car. It is a costume. It allows a tech CEO to feel like a general. And then they decided to push the absurdity to the absolute limit. They didn't just want to sell a G-Wagen. They wanted to see how much money people were actually willing to burn. Enter the Maybach G650 Landaulet. This is the moment the shark was jumped. They took the G-Wagen chassis, stretched it, put the V12 engine from a pagan god under the hood, and then, this is the crazy part, they chopped the roof off the back seats. They replaced the metal with a fabric top, inspired by the carriages of kings from the 1800s. Inside, they put the reclining massage seats from the S-Class Maybach. Think about this image. You are sitting in a semi-convertible monster truck, being massaged by hot stones, while a V12 engine screams, driving over a sand dune. It cost nearly $1.5 million, and it sold out instantly. This vehicle proved that there is no ceiling. There is no too expensive. There is only not exclusive enough. The G-Wagen had completed its transformation from a rejected military tool to the ultimate symbol of excess. But there was one final frontier, one final challenge that Mercedes hadn't conquered. 6 wheels. You heard me. 4 wheels were not enough for the oil fields of the Middle East. In the next part, we are going to look at the G63 6x6, a vehicle so large it requires a commercial trucking license in some countries, and how it defied the laws of physics to become the most viral car ever made. If you thought the Maybach with the laundry roof was the peak of insanity, you are underestimating the boredom of billionaires. In 2013, Mercedes looked at the G-Wagen and asked a question that no rational human being has ever asked. What if we added 2 more wheels? This is the G63 AMG 6x6. It is not a car. It is a glitch in reality. When you see one on the road, your brain struggles to process it because it looks like a video game cheat code come to life. It is nearly 6 meters long, 2 meters high, and weighs 4 tons. It is the size of a small apartment building, but it can outrun a hot hatchback. But here is the secret that makes this story perfect. Just like the original G-Wagen from 1979, this monster was born from a military order. The Australian Army needed a heavy-duty transport vehicle to carry troops and supplies across the harshest deserts in the outback. They asked Mercedes to build a 6-wheeled mule. It was slow, boring, and purely functional. But someone at AMG, the division of Mercedes that we established earlier as the mad scientists, saw this military mule and had a fever dream. They took this slow army truck and injected it with 536 horsepower. They swapped the diesel engine for a twin-turbo V8. And then, they added the most expensive off-road technology on the planet, portal axles. Listen closely because this is engineering porn. Normal axles are in line with the wheels. Portal axles are geared hubs that lift the entire drivetrain above the wheels, giving you nearly half a meter of ground clearance. You could drive over a boulder the size of a washing machine and not even feel it. But the ultimate party trick, the feature that made every sheik in Dubai pull out their checkbook, was the tire inflation system. Imagine this. You are driving on asphalt, and suddenly you hit soft sand. In a normal car, you have to get out, kneel in the dirt, and let air out of the tires manually. In the 6x6, you press a button on the roof console that looks like it belongs in a fighter jet. Huge onboard compressors scream to life, and in 20 seconds, the tire pressure drops, turning the tires into massive pillows that float over the sand. Press the button again, and they inflate back to highway pressure while you are driving at full speed. It is mechanical arrogance. It is a machine that says, I do not care what the terrain is. They only built roughly 100 units. The price tag? Over $500,000. And on the second-hand market, they trade for over $1 million. It became the ultimate FU money object. Dan Bilzerian bought one. Jurassic World featured one. It was the moment the G-Wagen transcended car culture and became a pop culture deity. It represented the absolute peak of the internal combustion era. It was loud, it drank fuel like a cruise ship, and it took up 2 parking spaces. It was a dinosaur in the best possible way. But dinosaurs go extinct. And as the 6x6 roared its way into the history books, a silent storm was gathering. The world was changing. Governments were banning gas engines. The noise, the vibration, the smell of gasoline, the very soul of the G-Wagen was suddenly under threat. Mercedes faced their biggest crisis since 1979. How do you save a legend when the laws of the physics and the laws of the government are conspiring to kill it? How do you make a G-Wagen without an engine? In the final part, we will witness the resurrection. We will see the EQG, the electric G-Class that performs a trick so impossible, so visually mind-bending, that it makes the 6x6 look like a toy. Get ready for the G-turn. The legend is not dying. It is just changing its heart. Listen to the silence. That is the sound of the end. Or at least, that is what the purists screamed when Mercedes announced the inevitable. The V8 engine, the beating heart of the G-Wagen, the noisy, vibrating soul that made it a legend, was being sentenced to death. Governments around the world were drawing a line in the sand. Zero emissions. For a vehicle that has the aerodynamics of a refrigerator and the weight of a cathedral, electrification seemed like a death sentence. Physics was finally coming to collect its debt. How do you turn a 4-ton brick into an electric vehicle without it running out of battery in 10 minutes? The world prepared for the funeral of the G-Class. They expected Mercedes to finally kill the box and replace it with a smooth, aerodynamic jelly bean. But they forgot one thing. The G-Wagen does not care about physics. And it definitely does not care about logic. In 2024, the curtain fell, and out rolled the G580 with EQ technology. And it was a box, the exact same box. They didn't smooth the edges. They didn't lower the roof. They looked at the wind and said, "Go around me." But the real shock was not the shape. It was the capability. They took the combustion engine out and replaced it with 4 individual electric motors, 1 for each wheel. This is not just an update. This is a cheat code for reality. Because the wheels are no longer connected by mechanical shafts, the computer can tell the left wheels to drive forward and the right wheels to drive backward simultaneously. This created the most viral automotive moment of the decade, the G-turn. Imagine a 3-ton luxury tank spinning 360 degrees on its own axis, spinning like a top in the middle of the dirt. It looks fake. It looks like CGI, but it is real. It is a party trick, yes, but it is a party trick that proves dominance. It says, I don't need a steering wheel to turn. I just rotate the earth beneath me. This feature broke the internet. It silenced the haters. Suddenly, the rappers and the billionaires didn't care about the missing V8 rumble because now they had a new way to show off. They could spin in circles in the middle of Beverly Hills. But Mercedes knew that silence is scary, so they engineered a sound. They call it the G-roar. It is a deep, synthetic, low-frequency hum that plays through the speakers, mimicking the emotional vibration of a gas engine. It is a ghost, a digital ghost of the combustion past, haunting the electric future. And this brings us to the final psychological truth of why this car will never die. We have traveled from the Shah of Iran to the Pope, from the trenches of war to the red carpets of Hollywood. We have seen it survive cancellation, bankruptcy, and now the death of gasoline. Why? Why are we so obsessed with this square? Because the G-Wagen is not a car. It is a psychological bunker. In a world that is becoming increasingly soft, digital, fragile, and uncertain, the G-Wagen is a promise of permanence. It is a heavy, steel fortress that tells you, you are safe, you are strong, you are immovable. When you close that door, clack, you are shutting out the chaos of the world. It is the ultimate mask. You can be a fragile tech billionaire, but inside the G, you are a warlord. You can be a soccer mom, but inside the G, you are an expedition leader. As long as human beings feel vulnerable, as long as we crave status, and as long as we want to feel stronger than we actually are, the G-Wagen will exist. It is no longer a machine made of steel. It is a myth made of money. The engine may change, the fuel may change, but the box remains. Stronger than time, stronger than logic. The king is dead. Long live the king.